ever had one of those moments when everything in your life seems perfect, and then, out of nowhere, a single detail cracks open like a door to something dark? I felt that way, standing in my kitchen on a stormy Tuesday evening, about to serve a meal that was supposed to celebrate my 2-year engagement. The rain was beating down, the smell of beef Wellington filled the room, and everything was ready for a night that was supposed to mark a future full of love and happiness. But I couldn't shake this feeling, the kind of feeling you get when you just know something isn't right. A little voice, always there but easy to ignore, until that night. The night everything unraveled. I had been ignoring that voice for months. No, let's be honest, years, but I couldn't anymore. It was supposed to be a quiet evening, just Brett, myself, and our plans for the future. But when my phone buzzed and Brett's voice came through, shaky and distracted, everything changed. He was at the airport. He said he had to fly out to Chicago for a business emergency. "It's our anniversary," I said, trying to keep my cool, but inside I felt something shifting, something that felt wrong. Brett assured me it was important, that it was all for us, but as I looked at the phone screen, there it was, hanging in the background like a dark shadow, Tiffany's neon pink suitcase, the one I had bought for her birthday. I froze. Why was she with him? Was he not alone? I tried to brush it off, but deep down I knew something wasn't right. He rushed off the phone, and that's when I heard it, the voice I knew all too well. My own mother, Linda, mocking me in the background. "God, she's so needy. It's exhausting," she said. "Let's go. Tiffany's waiting with drinks," Brett replied. A wave of nausea hit me. Hawaii? That was the plan? While I was here cooking dinner, pretending everything was normal, they were planning something else? I stood there, my hand gripping the counter as if it could hold me together. The truth was staring at me in the worst possible way. The storm outside mirrored the chaos that was building inside me. My family, my own flesh and blood, had been lying to me. They weren't going on a business trip. They were going to Hawaii, and I wasn't invited. No, it wasn't just that. It was worse than that. They had been plotting behind my back, with Brett in the center of it all. I couldn't breathe. I needed answers. The rain had turned from a gentle patter to a full-on downpour as I stood frozen in my kitchen, staring at the phone that had just betrayed me. My mind raced with confusion and hurt, but something inside me, the old, stubborn part, refused to face the truth. But then, there it was again, that little voice. I wasn't the kind of woman who would normally look for trouble, but that night, something inside me clicked. It wasn't just Brett's words, or the sudden trip to Chicago. It was that suitcase, Tiffany's suitcase. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I walked into the living room, the weight of the evening pressing down on me. I knew something was off, but I couldn't fathom what. Then I spotted it, Brett's iPad, right there on the coffee table. He never left it out like that. I knew he had a tendency to leave his things scattered about when he was distracted, but this felt different. I picked it up with trembling hands. The screen lit up with a new message. It was from Tiffany, and my stomach twisted as I read the preview on the lock screen. "I can't wait for us to announce the good news next week. She is going to freak out when she realizes the house is basically ours." The blood drained from my face. The house? My house? I stared at the message, my fingers shaking uncontrollably as I unlocked the device. I knew Brett's passcode. He had never changed it. It was 12/18, Tiffany's birthday. I had always thought it was a sweet gesture, a way for him to honor the sister who introduced us. Now, that number felt like a knife in my chest. The iPad unlocked, and just like that, I opened Pandora's box. I scrolled through the messages, each word cutting deeper into my soul. It wasn't just about a trip. It wasn't just about my anniversary dinner. It was about the house, my inheritance from Aunt Betty, the one thing I had left of her, the one thing that had always made me feel loved and seen. And now they were trying to take it from me. I read the texts in horror. "Brett, we need to make sure we have the original deed before the wedding," Tiffany's message read. She has no clue. She thinks I was fixing the hinge on the closet door. Tiffany, my sister, the one who had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, had been planning this with Brett all along. And my parents were in on it too? I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, but I couldn't cry. Not yet. I needed to see how deep this betrayal went. I scrolled up, my heart pounding. There was more, so much more. "Once they're married and he's on the deed, we leverage the property," my father had written. "That house is worth $1.2 million. That's your startup capital right there." My hands were shaking so hard I had to set the iPad down on the coffee table before I dropped it. They weren't just excluding me from a family vacation, they were planning to steal my future, my home, the one thing that had been mine and mine alone for years. It hit me then, hard and cold. This wasn't just about money, it was about control. And they had all been in on it. My mother, my father, my sister, and the man I was about to marry had all been plotting to take everything from me. They had turned my life into a transaction, and I was the mark. I sat back on the sofa, staring at the empty space in front of me. The weight of the lies hit me like a ton of bricks. They had made a plan to steal my inheritance. They had used me. They had manipulated me. And I had been so blind to it all. But I wasn't going to be their pawn anymore. I don't think I'd ever felt more alone in my life than I did in that moment. The kitchen, once a place of comfort, now felt like a prison. The smell of the beef Wellington, once so rich and promising, now turned my stomach. Everything I had carefully prepared to celebrate my life with Brett seemed like a cruel joke. I sat there in the living room, staring at the screen of Brett's iPad, my heart pounding in my chest. They hadn't just betrayed me. They'd been planning my downfall for months, maybe longer. Brett, Tiffany, my parents, they had all conspired to steal from me. And the worst part, I hadn't seen it coming. I could hear the storm raging outside, but it barely registered. I had my own storm brewing inside me. I had always been the quiet one, the one who took the back seat while everyone else took center stage. My parents had always favored Tiffany, her cheerleading, her beauty pageants, her loud, demanding personality. I was the studious one, the one who stayed out of the way, the one who never caused trouble. But now I could see it so clearly. My whole life had been a setup. They'd used me as a stepping stone to get what they wanted, and I had been too blind to see it. My phone buzzed again, dragging me from my thoughts. It was a message from Brett. I almost didn't want to read it, but I couldn't help myself. "Hey Val, I know things have been tense lately, but I promise I'm doing this for us. You'll understand once this deal goes through. I'm trying to build a future for us. I know you're upset about tonight, but we'll have a lifetime to make it up." A cold laugh escaped my lips. He thought I was upset about tonight? No, it wasn't just tonight. It was everything. It was the lies, the betrayal, the manipulation. It was the fact that he had been sleeping with my sister behind my back, plotting with my parents to take my home, all of it. I was no longer the naive woman he thought I was. The fog of love, the excuses I'd been making for his behavior, it was all lifting. The clarity hit me like a ton of bricks. I didn't need him, and I didn't need my family either. I had always believed that they were the ones who would be there for me, but they had proven me wrong in the worst way possible. But I wasn't going to just sit here and let them win. They thought they had it all figured out. They thought they could just walk all over me. Well, I had news for them. I stood up and paced around the living room, my mind racing. I had to act fast. I couldn't let them get away with this. I needed to protect what was mine, the house, the inheritance, everything Aunt Betty had left me. They wanted to take it from me. I wouldn't let them. I grabbed my phone and called Cassie. She was my best friend, the one person who had always been there for me, even when I didn't deserve it. I needed her now more than ever. She picked up on the second ring. "Val, is everything okay?" she asked, her voice instantly alert. "No, Cassie, it's not okay. Brett, he's been sleeping with Tiffany, and my parents are in on it. They've been trying to steal my house, my inheritance. I found the messages. They're planning to force me to sign the deed over to Brett." Cassie was silent for a moment, processing everything. "What do you need me to do?" she asked, her voice firm. "I don't know yet, but I need to figure out how to stop them," I said, pacing back and forth. "I can't just let this happen. I can't just walk away." "Listen to me, Val," Cassie said, her voice steady. "We're not just going to sit here and let them win. You've got something they don't. Your mind. You're smarter than them. We'll figure this out." And that's when I knew. I wasn't going to let them tear my life apart. I wasn't going to be their scapegoat anymore. I was going to fight back. And this time, I wasn't going to lose. I don't know what it was about Cassie's voice. Maybe it was the way she always seemed to know exactly what to say. Or maybe it was just the comfort of knowing I wasn't alone in this anymore. But something in me shifted. The panic that had been boiling in my chest began to cool. I wasn't just going to sit back and let them destroy me. Not anymore. "I'll be there soon," Cassie said, and I could hear the urgency in her voice. "Lock the doors. Don't do anything rash. Just keep it together. We'll handle this." I hung up the phone and walked to the kitchen. The house was silent now, save for the sound of the storm outside. It was like the calm after a battle, a brief moment of stillness before the next fight began. But I wasn't going to let this battle go to them. I stared at the cold, untouched beef Wellington sitting on the counter. It felt like a symbol of everything that had been taken from me. I couldn't bear the thought of sitting in that house any longer, knowing that my family, my fiancé, my sister, my parents had all been in on this betrayal. They thought they had it all figured out, but they didn't know who they were dealing with. I picked up my phone again, this time calling a lawyer I'd been referred to by a colleague at the pharmacy. Mrs. Higgins, an estate attorney, came highly recommended, and I needed someone who could help me navigate what was coming. I wasn't just going to let them steal everything Aunt Betty had worked so hard for. It was mine, and I was going to fight for it. Mrs. Higgins answered on the third ring. "Valerie Miller?" she asked, her voice businesslike but warm. "I've been expecting your call." "I need your help," I said, my voice steady now, the determination taking over. "I've been betrayed by my fiancé, my sister, and my parents. They've been plotting to take my inheritance from me, and I need to know what I can do to protect my property." There was a brief silence on the other end, and then Mrs. Higgins spoke again, her voice calm but firm. "We'll take care of it. You've got a strong case, but we need to move quickly. I'm going to need all the evidence you have, texts, photos, anything you can gather. You don't need to go through this alone." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. For the first time in days, I felt like I wasn't fighting this battle by myself. There was someone in my corner now. After a few more details about how we would proceed, I hung up and turned to the next task at hand. I needed to gather everything, the texts, the iPad, the bank statements, everything that proved my family's betrayal. They were going to pay for what they'd done, and I wasn't going to leave a single stone unturned. I was just finishing gathering the documents when the doorbell rang. I froze. My heart raced. Could it be them? Had they come back already? I looked through the peephole and saw Cassie standing there, her arms crossed, her expression fierce. I opened the door without hesitation. "Are you ready?" she asked, looking at me like I was about to go to war. I nodded. "Let's do this." Together, we moved swiftly through the house, gathering everything we needed. Cassie didn't ask questions. She just moved with purpose, helping me pack up the evidence, backing up the texts and messages on my phone, and making sure we had everything in place. As we finished, I looked at Cassie. "What now?" "We're going to make sure they never get what they want," she said with a grin. "But first, you need to get out of here. You can't stay in this house anymore. It's too dangerous. They'll come back. And when they do, it's time for you to make your move. I looked around the living room one last time, my heart heavy, but my resolve stronger than ever. They had tried to take everything from me. They had tried to break me, but they didn't know who they were up against. "I'm ready," I said, the words feeling like a promise I was making to myself. Let's take it all back. I could feel the weight of everything pressing down on me as I walked out of the house, leaving behind the shadows of betrayal and the memories that had been tainted by lies. I had always tried to be the good daughter, the good sister, the good fiancé, constantly trying to meet their expectations, constantly trying to please everyone around me. But it had gotten me nowhere. In fact, it had led me straight into their trap. Now, I was taking control of my own story. Cassie and I drove to the law office, my mind racing with everything I had learned in the past few hours. They had been plotting to steal my house, my inheritance, and my future, all while pretending to be the loving family I thought they were. It wasn't just about the property. It was about everything I had worked for, everything I had earned with my own hands. I had always felt like I was in the background, the quiet one who didn't make waves. But now, I realized that I had let them treat me like a doormat for too long. I wasn't just fighting for a house. I was fighting for my dignity, my worth, and my right to stand up for myself. When we arrived at Mrs. Higgins' office, I felt a sense of calm that I hadn't had all day. She was an expert, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like someone was finally listening to me. Mrs. Higgins was everything I needed, strong, competent, and no nonsense. We sat down in her office and I laid out all the evidence. The texts, the photos, the bank transfers, the forged signatures. I didn't leave anything out. "Good," Mrs. Higgins said after reviewing everything. "You've done well to gather all of this. It's going to make a difference. But we need to move quickly. I'll handle the legal stuff. You focus on getting out of this house and securing your future." She leaned forward, her voice calm but with an edge of determination. "You need to get away from them. Sell the house. Get your inheritance out of their reach. As long as you're here, they'll continue to come after it. It's not just about the property, Val. They want control of you. But that ends today." I nodded, knowing she was right. The house, my Aunt Betty's house, had always been my safe haven, but it had been tainted by the lies and betrayal of the people I had trusted the most. I couldn't stay there anymore. It was time to cut the ties completely. "Sell it fast," Mrs. Higgins instructed. "Find an investor who can close in a matter of days. Don't give them the chance to stop you." I took a deep breath. It wasn't going to be easy, but I knew it was the only way forward. I had to sever ties with my past. Cassie and I left the office, and she gave me a look that told me she was with me every step of the way. "We're going to make sure they never get what's yours," she said, her eyes burning with the same fire I now had in my chest. I reached out to an investor, someone Cassie knew through her cousin, who worked for a firm that bought properties quickly. The price was lower than I had hoped, but at this point, it didn't matter. I wasn't going to let my family's greed control my life any longer. By the time I had signed the preliminary paperwork, I felt like I was taking back control of my life. The house, my home, was no longer theirs. As we left the office, Cassie gave me a wink. "Let's pack up and get out of here. It's time to start your new life, Val. No looking back." I didn't know what the future held, but I knew it was mine now. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. The next few days felt like a whirlwind. I was no longer just reacting to the betrayal that had shattered my life. I was taking action. I knew that once the house was sold, there would be no turning back. It would be the ultimate cut from the past I had known, the family I had loved, and the future I thought I was building with Brett. But as each hour passed, my resolve grew stronger. I was doing this for me. Cassie, ever the whirlwind of energy and support, took charge of the logistics. She arranged for a moving company to come in and pick up the last of my belongings. I couldn't afford to let anyone see what I was doing. No neighbors, no friends, not even anyone from my family. I couldn't risk them finding out before the deal was done. The house was about to change hands, and once it was out of my grasp, there would be no more ties to them. I sat on the floor of the living room, watching as furniture that had once felt like a part of me was taken away. My Aunt Betty's beautiful antiques, the heirlooms I had cherished, were all being sold or donated. It was a painful process, but it was necessary. Everything they had touched, everything they had claimed, had to be wiped clean from my life. The silence in the house was deafening. I wasn't sure what hurt more, losing the memories that came with this place, or knowing that it was no longer a sanctuary. It had become a battlefield. But that was the thing about battles, wasn't it? They weren't always won in the way you expected. Sometimes the only victory you can claim is simply surviving them. I didn't feel sadness as I watched the last pieces of furniture being loaded into the truck. It wasn't regret that I felt, not anymore. I felt relief. Relief that the walls I had lived behind for so long were being taken down, brick by brick. The house was no longer just a building. It had become a prison. And now, it was time to lock the door and walk away. With everything in motion, I found myself at a crossroads. Where would I go now? The house, my home, was no longer mine. The future I had once dreamed of with Brett, the one that involved a big wedding, a life built together, was now a distant, bitter memory. But I had something that none of them could ever take from me. I had the truth, and that was going to set me free. The next day, I met with Mrs. Higgins one last time. She went over the final steps of the sale and reassured me that everything was in place. The wire transfer was scheduled, the funds would be in my account soon, and my past was already slipping away. "Just a few more steps," she said, her calm demeanor unwavering. "You've done the right thing. The house is sold, and once you get the funds, you can move forward with your life. No more looking over your shoulder." I knew she was right. I had no reason to stay in California anymore. It was over. The fight was done. "I've already made arrangements," I told her. "I'm leaving the country. I've accepted a job in London." Her eyes softened, but there was a knowing smile on her face. "Good. Start fresh. You've earned it." And just like that, everything fell into place. I didn't need to explain myself anymore. I didn't need to justify my decisions to anyone. I was going to London, and I was going to build the life I had always deserved. The moment I stepped onto that plane, I felt the weight of everything lift off my shoulders. The people who had used me, manipulated me, and betrayed me had no power over me anymore. The life I had left behind in California felt so far away. It was like stepping into a new world, a world where I was in control. The flight to London was long, but I spent the hours reflecting on everything that had happened. My heart was no longer broken. It was healing. I had walked away from my family, I had walked away from Brett, and I was walking into a future that was entirely mine. When I landed in London, the cold air and damp pavement felt like a breath of fresh air. This was where I was meant to be. As I settled into my new life, I knew that the hardest part was behind me. I was finally free. And so, I began again. The weeks that followed my move to London were a blur of new beginnings. The city was everything I had hoped for. Brisk mornings, quiet evenings, and a sense of independence I had never truly experienced before. I felt like I was finally breathing with the weight of betrayal dragging me down. My work at the research hospital kept me busy, and for the first time in a long time, I found myself focused on something that was truly mine: my career, my future, and my peace of mind. But the fallout from everything I had left behind didn't end with the sale of the house. It was a slow burn, a constant hum in the background, the echo of the lives I had severed ties with. My family, of course, couldn't leave it alone. It wasn't enough for them to move on. They had to try to drag me back into their toxic world, to continue the cycle of manipulation they had perfected over the years. I hadn't heard from them since I left, and I had no intention of reaching out, but that didn't stop them from trying to contact me. The first message came a week after I'd arrived in London. It was from my mother, a simple text that read, "Valerie, we're worried about you. Come home. We need to talk. I'm your mother, and I've always done my best for you. I love you." I didn't respond. I didn't owe them an explanation. Then came Brett. His message was more desperate, a series of texts that became increasingly frantic. "Babe, what's going on? You're scaring me. Please, let's talk. I love you. I don't want to lose you. We need to fix this." The audacity of it all. After everything he'd done, after everything he's stolen, he still thought he could win me back with words? He still thought I was the same woman who had once catered to his every need. I wasn't. And then there was Tiffany. Her message was more direct, filled with a sense of entitlement I had come to expect from her. "I know you're mad, Val, but you've got to understand. We were just trying to help. We were going to make everything better. You were always the one holding us back, but now look at us. Look at the life we could have had. You should have been on our side." I read it, but I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. Nothing could fix what had been broken. It wasn't long before I heard the news. A cousin, who still thought it was appropriate to keep me updated on family drama, sent me an email with the subject line, "Your parents." I opened it, and the words burned into my brain. "Valerie, I don't know if you've heard, but your parents are in financial ruin. The house they moved into after they lost yours has been foreclosed on. They're living in a small apartment now, and it's not looking good for them. Your mom's health has been deteriorating, and your dad, well, I don't think he's been sober in months. They've been asking about you. They need your help." It hit me like a punch to the gut. Part of me wanted to feel something, guilt maybe, something that made me question whether I had done the right thing by cutting them off. But then I remembered everything they had put me through, the manipulation, the betrayal, the years of emotional neglect. No, I couldn't go back. I wouldn't. Instead of feeling the weight of their desperate messages, I focused on building my life here in London. I had a new apartment, a new job, and a sense of freedom I had never known. I was slowly, but surely, building a life for myself, a life that didn't revolve around the toxic patterns of my family. But the past had a way of creeping back in. One afternoon, about a month after I settled in, I received a call from Mrs. Higgins. "Valerie, I have some updates for you regarding Brett and the legal matters," she said, her voice calm as always, but with a hint of urgency. "I've been in contact with the district attorney's office, and we've managed to move forward with the charges. The forged loan application is now a federal case. They're building a solid case against Brett. He's facing some serious consequences." My heart skipped a beat. "He's in jail?" I asked, not knowing whether I wanted to hear the answer. "Not yet, but it's coming," Mrs. Higgins replied. "There's more. Tiffany's been implicated in the fraud case as well. She's been named as a co-conspirator. It looks like she may be facing charges too." I closed my eyes, trying to process everything. I had known deep down that they wouldn't get away with it, but hearing that confirmation felt like a final chapter closing in my life. "I've taken care of everything on my end," Mrs. Higgins continued. "You've got nothing to worry about. You're free, Valerie." For the first time in a long time, I felt the truth of those words. I was free. The life I had been living, caught in the web of my family's lies, guilt, and manipulation, was over. I had cut the ties, and now they were paying the price. Later that night, I walked through my London neighborhood. The streets were quiet, the only sounds being the rustling of leaves in the breeze and the faint hum of the city in the distance. I had done it. I had built a new life for myself, away from the chaos and the lies. And I wasn't going back. The truth was, I'd always thought that cutting ties with my family would be harder. I thought I'd miss them. I thought I'd long for the good times, the holidays, the family dinners. I thought I would feel that familiar pull to return to the fold, to go back to the people I had known my whole life. But what I found instead was peace. I was at a new crossroads in my life. There was no going back to the version of me that had been manipulated and mistreated. The woman who had catered to her family's every need, who had been the pawn in their game of control, no longer existed. And for the first time, I was okay with that. London had become my sanctuary. The city was bustling with life, full of new possibilities, new people, and new experiences. But more importantly, it was a place where I could finally be me. I didn't have to worry about pretending anymore. I didn't have to worry about keeping up appearances. I was free to chase the life I had always dreamed of, one that didn't depend on the approval of anyone but myself. The phone buzzed one evening as I was sipping tea in my cozy little flat. I looked at the screen and saw an unfamiliar number. I hesitated for a moment, but curiosity got the better of me, and I answered. "Valerie?" It was Sarah, my cousin, the one who had kept me updated on my family's downfall. "Sarah," I said, surprised, "what's going on?" I just wanted to let you know that things have really fallen apart. I don't know if you care, but I think you should know," she said, her voice soft. I braced myself for whatever news she was about to share. I had cut ties, and I had made peace with that. But there was something in her voice that made me listen. "Your parents," she continued, "they've lost everything. The apartment is going into foreclosure, they're living in a cheap rental now, and your mom's health is still bad. Tiffany, well, she's in a mess of her own, trying to work out her second marriage. But it's clear that everything they thought they could rely on has crumbled. Brett, well, he's still in jail, and he's got a long sentence ahead of him." I felt a wave of something wash over me. Was it sympathy? Maybe, but not in the way I expected. There was no anger left, no frustration. It was just a deep, tired sadness. A realization that it had all been so pointless. All the scheming, all the manipulation, for what? It had all collapsed, and they were left with nothing. "I guess what I'm trying to say, Val," Sarah continued, "is that I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't see it either. But now I do. And I'm sorry for everything." I stayed quiet for a moment, letting the words sink in. It wasn't easy to hear, but at least Sarah was finally showing some real remorse. The rest of the family, though, they would never understand. And I had accepted that. "You don't have to apologize, Sarah," I said, my voice steady. "What's done is done. They made their choices, and I made mine. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done with them. And I need to keep moving forward." "I understand," she replied softly. "I'm just glad you're doing okay." "I am," I said with a quiet smile. "I'm finally okay. But thank you for reaching out. I'm grateful for that." The next few months passed quickly, filled with new beginnings. I found myself adapting to this new chapter of my life with ease. I immersed myself in my work, growing professionally and personally. London was a place of endless opportunity, and I was determined to make the most of it. I kept in touch with Cassie, who had become my anchor through all of this. We had started making plans for future vacations and visits, and I had even started considering dating again. It was strange to think that I could actually trust someone enough to open my heart again after everything that had happened, but I was willing to try. One rainy morning, while sitting in a cozy cafe in the heart of Kensington, I received an email. It was from Mrs. Higgins. "Valerie," she wrote, "the case against Brett is finally closed. He pled guilty to all charges, and he will serve his time in federal prison. The restitution has been filed, and as of today, your legal battle is officially over." The weight that had been hanging over my head for so long, those lingering fears of retaliation, of not being completely free, was finally gone. I had been so focused on getting away, on starting fresh, that I hadn't realized how much closure I needed. I closed my laptop and looked out the window. The rain was light, just a soft drizzle that made everything outside glisten. I wasn't looking back anymore. There was nothing to look back at. The woman I used to be was gone, and the woman I was becoming was stronger, braver, and free. The phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Liam, the architect I had been casually seeing for the past few months. "Dinner tonight? I know a great little Italian place. Your choice, Val." I smiled and typed back. "Sounds perfect. I'll pick the wine." I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. And that was enough. I may have walked away from everything I knew, but what I gained was priceless. The family I thought I could never live without, I was better off without them. The life I had been too scared to chase, I was finally chasing it. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. So, if you're listening to this and you've ever felt like you've been used, manipulated, or taken advantage of by the people who were supposed to love you, know this: you are not alone. You have the strength to walk away, to protect your peace, and to rebuild your life, just like I did. If you've been through something similar, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and share your story. Let's start a conversation about standing up for ourselves and cutting ties with toxicity when it's necessary. Remember, it's never too late to take back control of your life. If you found this story empowering, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Mabel Stories for more content like this. You're not just a spectator in your own life. You're the hero of your own story. Keep fighting for your freedom. Take care, everyone, and remember, always water your own garden first.